Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraya Tato Jayam Udiraya Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhāgavata Sevaya Nityam Bhāgavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke Bhagavatyuttama shloke Bhaktir bhavati naishtaki Bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Thank you, Jessica. Okay. So nice to be picking up again. We missed our Bhagavat Purāṇa. So let us dive straight back in. And I was thinking, we're jumping around a bit, but how about we do a Krishna Lila next week, which is the grand finale and the apex and the culmination of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is sometimes described as like a golden ring, and the 10th book is like the jewel. So the rest of the Bhagavatam is really preparing the reader to encounter Krishna in the 10th book. There's 12 books. And, you have to understand who Krishna is, because if you just read the Krishna story, you see this little child crawling around in the dust of Vrindavan. How we're not used to thinking of God like that. We think of God on high. We think of whether you're coming from an Abrahamic tradition, by which I mean, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam all, have a connection with Abraham. But we don't have, well, maybe with baby Jesus. We've said this before. So we have to be prepared. But still, it's okay to jump around to get a taste for the Bhagavatam. But if one does get a taste, then the text would say, well, then read the whole thing from beginning to end. And the promise it makes is that we will get Krishna Prema if we do that. That's a pretty lofty promise, actually. If you think about it, we will get love of God if we read the whole text. But in the beginning, we're jumping around because we are trying to get a taste for it. So let's stick with now the Kapila. I don't know how many of you want to do like Sankhya philosophy. We're just doing the story of Queen Kunti because there's not a lot of ladies in the Bhagavatam until we get to the 10th book. Right? So the first 9 books are classical kind of yoga, although it's bhakti, it's Vaishnava bhakti, but mostly male renunciates, and they're mostly kings and Brahmins. So we don't get a sense of the ladies. With Upanishads, we have, 2 or 3 token ladies. Maitreyi, who's pretty, she's also Maitreyi. But in the 10th book, it all flips around because bhakti flips everything around. And the highest yogis are the gopis, number 1 spot. In terms of intensity of love, that's what we're talking about. And number 2 is Yashoda. So it's very interesting how the kind of male kind of ethos of yoga, which is forest and asceticism and discipline and mostly male yogi types, it all gets flipped around in bhakti. Anyway, so this is so Kapila, we know, is the founder of Sankhya. Remember, yoga is Sankhya, not something separate or different. Yoga is the sort of the practice part, and Sankhya is the metaphysical part. But they're one. It's only later on that they get separated into 2 schools, but not so in the beginning. So yoga is more the, how you actually attain the truths that are laid out in Sankhya. How do you experience this Purusha that's separate from Prakriti? And so I don't know if you're interested in looking at the Sankhya philosophy. It's a little dense, which is different from the other form. Not different, but it's very interesting to see how it's a highly theistic form of Sankhya philosophy. But today. We'll stick with the story, and we'll think about maybe next week taking a leap into just one lila for one session, and then the week after that we'll come back and we'll see how everybody feels about continuing with Sankhya. We can go on to some other story. Okay, but let's see how we do today. And
Go to the Leela now.
we will. Thank you, Eleonora, for that enthusiastic. I agree with you, but we how do you say no to that? But let's just read a bit, okay? And we were on 43, okay? Right. So remember what happens is Kardama made the deal. It's been a long time. He was approached by Brahma. He had to, he was approached by Brahma. He had to create progeny, And so the emperor gave him his daughter in hand in marriage. And of course, that's a very elevated, he was a great sage. And the emperor understood. He had the best interest of his daughter in mind. What's the best interest you can have for your child? We think, okay, we would protect our children, make sure they're educated, make sure they're safe in the world. And that's obviously well and good. But the ultimate benediction or boon or blessing or service that one can do to one's child is prepare them for the moment of death, so that in the next life they won't have to be reborn. What greater gift can there be? So the emperor understood this, and so his daughter did too. So we know the whole story, right? So then they wed, and then they were vanaprasthans, they were living celibate, but eventually the time came, and so Kunti approached her husband, said, "Will you promise me offspring?" So he said, "Okay," and he created this wonderful palace, and they enjoyed. And then she became pregnant, and that was the deal. So he's setting up a sannyas now. But he leaves her with a son who will protect her, and that's Kapila, an incarnation of Vishnu. Okay, so now Kapila is addressing his father. I think that's where we left off. And he says to his father, because, just to allay any doubts his father may have had, he says, "Don't worry, Dad, I'll look after Mum," essentially. Except in Sanskrit, how do you say that? Machinta kuru pita aham ma look after raha. No, anyway. So he says, "Go as you please." Verse 38. "With my approval," says Kapila to his father, "overcome death, which is so hard to overcome, by dedicating all your actions to me." This is bhakti. "Worship me to attain the state of immortality." So Kapila is blessing his father. "Don't worry, I will take care of Mum. I am self-luminous, the hidden refuge within all beings." That's the antaryami, that within all beings there's the Atman, but in Vaishnavism, there's also Vishnu, accompanying all living entities, separate entity. Bit like a guardian angel, perhaps in Catholicism, but not quite like that. Not an angel, but actually the manifestation of God. It's called the Antaryami, or the Paramatma. So he says here, "I am self-luminous, the hidden refuge within all beings. Without anxieties, you will perceive me, the supreme Atman, in your own Atman, through the Atman." See the difference here? From the conventional moksha traditions, you're not just seeing your Atman, but you're also perceiving the supreme Atman. There's a dualism in Vaishnavism. There's always an eternal distinction between the soul and God, my friends. It's not that we're God. How can we be God? It's absurd. How would we be trapped in Maya if we're God? We cannot be God. It's insanity. It's delusional to think we are God. If we're God, then create a universe. That's the minimum that's the minimum sort of kind of requirement for being Bhagavan, for being Ishvara, to create a universe. That Ishvara, the definition of Ishvara is the one who has the most power, Aishvarya. And what is the most powerful thing you can do is create a universe. So if you want to think you're God, create a universe, and then we'll talk about it. So in Vaishnavism, there's clearly a distinction between the Supreme Being and the Atman. So therefore, look at this. "You will perceive me, the Supreme Atman, in your own Atman, through the Atman." That's right. So the Supreme is right there. Somehow it's co-present with the Atman. And it's a little unclear exactly, because different Vaishnava schools pitch that slightly differently. I don't want to get into that now. But they're all dualistic. They wouldn't call themselves dualistic. But for now, let's just say there's a dualism, at least insofar as the Atman is distinct from Bhagavan, from the Param Atman. That is why you can't have bhakti otherwise. And certainly you can't have eternal bhakti. Okay, at that time you will attain the state of fearlessness. Verse 40, I will impart spiritual knowledge, which puts an end to all karma, to my mother. Spiritual knowledge is you are Atman, you're not body-mind. So stop looking for pleasure through body-mind, because you will fail, you'll always be frustrated, and every action generates a reaction, and that's karma. So spiritual knowledge puts an end to that. Vidya puts an end to the avidya. You know Patanjali, 5 kleshas, avidya, mula, uttaresham. It's the root of the others. And what are the others? Ego, desire, aversion. And because of desire, we act and then we generate reactions. If you get rid of the mula, the root of it all, avidya, you put an end to karma because you no longer desire material things. You no longer seek happiness through the body and the mind. That's the spiritual knowledge. That's vidya. So that puts an end to karma because then we understand who we really are and we cultivate that knowledge. So he's going to impart that knowledge to his mother, to my mother. By this knowledge, she will overcome fear. We have to be fearful. As long as we think we're body and mind, how are we not going to be fearful? Anything can happen to the body at any moment. Avidya is necessarily a state of constant fearfulness and anxiety. Because because either both the body and the mind. Because anything could happen to the body. Then mentally, anybody we could be honored or dishonored or, but there's constantly fear that we're going to be belittled or that people think, are going to sort of condescend to us and so on and so forth. So as long as we're in ignorance, we are necessarily fearful, both on the physical, through physical identification with the body, and also mentally. So, overcome fear. So Maitreya said, Kardama, the progenitor of species, right? He'd been told that he had to procreate. So he's a progenitor. They call Prajapati, the Pati, the father of the Praja, Ja, right? Sanskritist. That's Jun. That's from Jun, to be born. Prajan. So the Prajapatis are the lords of procreation, and they, the beginning of the universe, or at the early stages of the universe, are progenitors of species in the Vedic system of understanding where life comes from, or at least where the species come from. They call Prajapatis, so Kardama was one of those. So dressed in this way by Kapila, founder of Sankhya, his son, really Vishnu, circumambulated him and joyfully set out for the forest. He's going to he's given up everything, his beautiful, wonderful wife. And what's interesting is setting out, and Vishnu is his son. You think, well, hang on a minute. He's seeking Vishnu? Oh, Vishnu just got born as his son. So it's kind of interesting. This is the sort of verse you'd like to look at the commentators. Why is he leaving? Oh, he doesn't need to take sanya. You take sannyas to go seek Bhagavan and, meditate in the forest. Well, Bhagavan just got born as his son. So probably it was because this is all planned, it's preordained, and he's following the sort of Leela. He's following the sort of, he's going to be meditating on Kapila in his heart, which is almost the same thing as Krishna tells the gopis. So, and he said joyfully, now he's free of all attachments, and he can simply, exclusively dedicate himself to the pursuit of Atman. Don't you think that's what we should all be doing, my friends, as we retire? What are we going to do in retirement? More nonsense? We're going to still be seeking some new adventure or some new. The retirement where your body gets old. Retirement is for going deep into our practices. To if we reading, we could read the Bhāgavata 3 hours a day, and japa 2 hours a day, puja 2 hours a day. Then do a little cooking. What else are we going to do for retirement? Chase some other foolish hobby. How's that going to help us at the moment of death? Nature helps us by making us old and creaky, and we can't run around anymore. Then we get old, and nobody wants to look at us anymore. So romance is out. This is retirement. It's for spiritual pursuits. And look, it's such a nice thing to look forward to, actually. Right now. So The sage, fixed in the vow of silence, it is Mauna. I don't know who he's going to be talking to anyway in the forest, but there we are. Absorbed in the Atman. So he has attained the goal of Patanjali yoga. Of course, that's not the ultimate goal for Vaishnavism, because there's an additional goal on top of that, over and above that. Not that the Atman isn't there. Yes, we pick up the Atman on the way. You've heard me say this before. It's like you pick up an MA on the way to get your PhD. But once you get the PhD, the MAs, who walks around saying, once you got your PhD, unless you're really, occasionally you find people after the name, they have MA, MPhil, PhD, let's like, what do you want all those initials for? Once you got a PhD, obviously you got your MA and MPhil, unless you just want to like string out all these letters of the alphabet. So once you've got the PhD, the MA is irrelevant. You don't think about, oh, I got an MA. It's irrelevant. It's passé. It's got. So once one has perceived the Atman and has a darshan of Vishnu, then the one doesn't want to be absorbed in the bliss of the self. One wants to be absorbed in meditation of Bhagavan. So it's almost as if that, although one has that bliss of the Atman, it becomes very secondary, if not irrelevant. So, share? Well, I did share. Oh, there we are. Absorbed in the Atman, wandered forth over the earth without any company, without residence, and neglecting the sacred ritualistic fire. He's given up his dharmas as a brahmana. It's interesting because even in the Upanishads, the sages, and they've renounced, but they're still doing their Vedic rites. So that has such a strong hold on the brahmana mind. The mind of a brahmana, a real brahmana, not just some caste brahmana, but a real brahmana in these epic texts. They're still doing their Vedic sacrifices in the forest even after they renounce. He's renouncing it. So without residence, right? So the rule for the real sadhu, 3 days in one place, then you've got to go and then you move on to the next tree, because you get attached even to your tree. Honestly, sometimes you can still take your kleshas with you into extreme states of renunciation. I've seen Babas practically come to beat each other up because someone, sat on their, whatever it is, in their spot. And they totally renounce. They're wearing a loincloth. And then some other Baba comes and sits in their spot. And they're ready to poke his eyes out with the trident. So the klesha, so just renouncing it is not enough. You got to renounce in the mind as well. So anyway, on we go. So where are we? So without any company, you don't want to chit chat. When I hitchhiked to India, 1978, I went alone. Precisely because of this, because then you really test yourself. You're forced to take shelter on Bhagavan, without any company, without residence, and neglecting the sacred ritualistic fire. He fixed his mind on Brahman, which is beyond the real and the unreal. It's beyond everything prakritic. It's interesting. Who's got the book? What is that footnote 57? Eleanor, would you be kind enough? Well, we know what the real is. The real normally is Atman. But now he's saying beyond the real, so there must be another. He's taking real and a different. The unreal we know is Prakriti because it's ever changing. So it has no sat. It has no continual existence. The forms are always permeating. What does it say in footnote 57 for being beyond the real? I can't remember. It's been years since I wrote this.
The Danvas here are Vedanta categories referring to 57, you said?
Footnote 57. For this chapter.
The Danvas here are Vedanta categories referring to the dualities of the body, such as hot and cold, and of the mind, such as happiness and distress.
No, that's not the right one.
That's 57.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. We'll check it later. Okay, thank you, Eleanor. Okay, now, Brahman. Although it itself is devoid of the guna qualities, right? Because these sattva, rajas, and tamas, that's prakriti. Brahman has qualities. Let's see what it says here. Right. Although it is devoid of the guna qualities of sattva, rajas, and tam, yet it is through Brahman that the gunas are manifest. Krishna says in the Gita, Devi hi esha guna mai mama maya. These gunas are my maya. So Brahman and Ishvara and Krishna, these are all synonyms. So although Krishna, Ishvara, Bhagavan, Brahman is beyond Prakriti, but it's through Brahman that the gunas are manifest. And if you look at that verse in the Gita, I think it's in the sixth chapter, I'll say it slowly. Devi, divine, he, indeed it is divine, what? Devi hi esha guna mai, mama maya. This maya of mine, mama maya, is divine, and it's gunamai. What is maya? It's the gunas. We talk about maya, avidya. What is maya? It's not some other thing. It is nothing other than the three gunas themselves. That is what maya is. So we could be under tamasic maya or rajasic maya or sattva. Even sattva is maya. Very high kind of level, But Krishna says in the Gita, even sattva is like a bond, because you become tranquil and content, and you see all beings equally. So you're friendly with everybody, and everybody loves you and adores you. You become attached to that. He says that it's a bond. Even sattva binds. And how does it bind? Through knowledge and contentment, something like that. But anyway, so the gunas are like a Shakti. They're like Shakti of Bhagavan, of Brahman as Bhagavan. Shakti means an extension, a power, like the sunlight to the sun. So the sun manifests Shakti in the form of light. So the light is one, but also different. Okay, so now it is through Brahman that the gunas are manifest. It can be experienced only by exclusive devotion. You can only get Bhagavan by bhakti, my friends. By devotion, by surrender, by service, by humility. Atman you can get by your own ego and willpower, by sheer brute grit determination. No grace necessary for perception of the Atman. Only simply yogic virtuosity, because it's your Atman. But Bhagavan can't be controlled by your yogic virtuosity. So you still have to be a yogi and do all that stuff, but Bhagavan is attracted and won by devotion. So Kardama was without ego, verse 44, without sense of ownership. Aham mama, aham is I, like aham kara. Mama is mine. He had no sense of I-ness or minus or mineness. Without sense of, Patanjali calls this aparigraha. Beyond all dualities, he saw everything as Brahman, everything as Bhagavan. Gita says, Vasudeva Sarvam. Vasudeva is everything. So from that level, everything is Vasudeva. Or in the Upanishadic language, Sarvam Idam Kalu Brahman. All this is Brahman. So different ways of framing it, but it's beyond dualities. In one sense, that's why like Ramanuja would not consider himself a dualist. He would say Vishishta Dvaita. It's differentiated non-duality. But these are fine points that we will not detain us now. Perceiving all beings equally. This is the Samadvam Yoga Muchyate, seeing everything equally. The Bhagavatam says there's no being, Krishna says there's no one more dear to me than one who sees all beings equally. That's a beautiful thing to aspire for, my friends. Who's going to disagree with that? Who's going to disagree with, except a racist or a sexist? Even if you're an atheist, who would disagree that to see all beings equally is a high, benevolent, it doesn't have to be religious, or it's even spiritual. Just to see all beings, we can all agree on that, everyone, except hardcore racists. And that's the sage. Later in the Bhagavatam, Krishna says, "There's no one more dear to me than someone who cultivates that." It's a beautiful practice. It really is. You can do it every second. You go to the hardware store or the grocery store, and you just look at the cashier in the eye, and you can, you can generate these samskaras. You are me, I am you. It's practical, it's immediate. You don't have to know any fancy fluting philosophy or Sanskrit. You simply try, cultivating this practice. It's something I'm really hoping to take more seriously. Otherwise, you get trapped in all this knowledge and it all goes to your head. Right now, so he, perceiving all beings equally and the seer of his own inner self, he was fixed, his mind peaceful, turned inward like an ocean whose waves are calm. Freed from the bonds of samsara, he realized his own self by means of the highest devotion to God, Vasudeva, the omniscient inner soul. So there's a little bit of a stress on jnana here. A little bit less of a stress on bhakti, which we'll find elsewhere. So there are passages in the Bhagavatam where there's more talk about realization of your own self. But, we're still in the third canto. And it'll become more and more theistic as we progress. This is one of the things I hope to do when I retire, is really look very carefully at the structure of the Bhagavatam. For example, in the Gita, it starts up with Jnana Yoga. You're the Atman is eternal, can't be cut by weapons, da 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 da. Then around the verse 30, 40, middle of the 30s, okay, Karmini Vadas gotta stay now, but do your duty in the world. So then we get Karma Yoga, and then it slowly builds up to bhakti at the end towards the second part of the text. So that you can think about the Gita too, just from the point of view of structure. What is its logic? What's its internal logic? Where does it start you, and where do you end up? You end up sarva dharma parityagya mamekam sharanam. Give up all dharma, just surrender to me. And then the Bhagavata picks up where the Gita leaves off. But anyway, so he saw Bhagavan, the Supreme Soul, not the Atman, but the Paramatma, situated within all beings, and all beings within Bhagavan, the Supreme Soul. So this is a kind of a theism. Bhagavan is there, but it's kind of like all, it's still sort of mixed with jnana, if you want. There's still this sort of stress on the Atman, in chapter 3 here, the Atman, but now the Atman is seen as all of beings are seen within Bhagavan, within God. And then as the text proceeds, we'll see that this Bhagavan will become more and more personal, more and more personal, more and more until it gets to the 10th book, where that personality of Bhagavan we see in his most intimate manifestation as a little child who takes the form of a little Gopal simply to please his devotees. He's been won by his devotees, and he wants to give them pleasure. So he takes the form that gives them pleasure, little Gopal. Right. Okay. So with his mind free from desire and aversion, seeing everything equally, Kardama attained the divine destination by engaging in devotion to God. So let's just read a little bit, and then to make Eleonora happy, we will read a Leela in the second part of when we stop at the hour. We'll read a little bit more of the Sankhya, and then we will read a Leela. Okay? And then the next time we get back, we can jump around. It's up, right now we're just getting a taste for this.
Edwin, I was hoping I could let you know something about the numbering. The manuscript that you're using on the screen is slightly different than the book by 3 numbers. So like in our book, your reference, the one you asked Eleanor for, in our book, it's number 54. In your manuscript that you're using, it's 57. But the book is correct with what it says here and there, but that might be an updated manuscript where you added 3 more references.
I've never heard this before. I haven't changed anything. I have no idea how that came to be.
But it is
It is.
in our book. It's 54, not 57,
Thank you so
and
much for
so
that observation.
I've kind of noticed it for a little bit, but kind of figured it out. You
Okay,
know, I've taken this with you before about 3 or 4 years ago, so I had my notes in my book from back then. And
that's cool. Thank you so much for that. I had no
you're welcome.
idea, and nor do I
Yeah,
have an explanation for that.
right.
So I don't know how that
But
came to
then,
be because
yeah.
yeah, because they should be just copy set. Well, I don't understand why they would change the numbering, but they have, okay, maybe I'll follow up on that and ask the publisher. Probably I won't.
But it's all correct. I mean, the reference is correct in the book. The book isn't off in any way. It's just a little different than what the manuscript is numbering
Got it.
on
Thank you.
there. Yeah.
Thanks so much for pointing that out.
You're
So, Book
welcome.
3, Chapter 25. So, although he himself is actually unborn, Kapila, right, the son now, his father's just gone off, who is Bhagavan in person. So the text all the way through it loves to have this moronic play between the unborn one being born. We read it in class yesterday, actually, in our Krishna class. Same thing. Unborn one becomes in the Gita. Ajopi san avyayatman bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim adishtaya sambhavami. Although I am unborn, I manifest in my own prakriti. I manifest. So the text loves to play with that idea. The unborn one taking birth. Obviously, what does that mean? He's not taking birth like you or I, according to karma. Bhagavan is eternal. And I'm going to throw a log in the fire. Give me 1 second. Oof. There we are. Almost out. Let's see this as well. Ouch. Some lights on. Ta-da. So he took birth through his spiritual potency, not because of karma. Same thing in the Gita, chapter 4. Sambhavami atmamayaya, by my own power. So this is, the difference between Bhagavan and us. We take our births because of past life activities. So he took his spiritual potency as the expounder of Sankhya philosophy. This is where yoga, Patanjali, all of that comes from. The Sankhya philosophy, which tradition associates with Kapila. And he's presented differently. It's very interesting in different texts. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad, he's associated with Shiva. So, there's a whole book actually on Kapila. He clearly was an enormous being. There's a book on Kapila in all the different Puranas and all Sanskrit literature, how Kapila sort of is presented differently. I had it once upon a time and I gave it all away. Right now. Why did he take birth? As an expander of Sankhya philosophy so as to impart knowledge of the Atman to mankind. Right? So Sankhya is very much about what the Atman is not. So one becomes clear about what it is. So it's kind of like the neti of the Upanishads. Not this, not this, not this. That's why you have the 24 elements of Sankhya to outline very clearly what is it that we are not. Not the gross bodies, which are made of the Mahabhutas, the gross elements, not the Tanmatras, which are the qualities of hearing and all of that, not the not the karmindriyas, not the gyan, not the organs of perception, we're not the organs of locomotion, of activity, we're not the mind, we're not the intelligence. We're not the ego. So all of that's outlined in Sankhya to be very, very clear about what it is that we are. I mean, I'm sure we've discussed this before. The great Greek philosophers, Plato, he, from the point of view of Sankhya, might have been a brilliant, even a great rishi, but he thought we were the mind. Plato said, that he calls the soul the psyche. He thinks that's who we are. Descartes piggybacks on Plato. So Sankhya would say, well, you you gentlemen are great philosophers, but not even the mind. Keep going. There's something beyond the mind. And I think, this is just my speculation, don't take this seriously, all right? I'll tell you when I'm speaking, and I'll tell you, and it's me, and I'll tell you when it's the text. I think the reason Plato got stuck there, thinking that the mind is the self, is because he never meditated. He was purely a rationalist. I mean, he had these mystical, I'm not saying he didn't, but not meditated like the Indian yogis did. So he never stilled the mind and went to the place beyond. So he didn't have that experience. So therefore, for him, the psyche that's the name for the soul in Plato. He never went beyond that. And why didn't he not go beyond that? Because he never meditated in the intense way that Patanjali demands and expects and outlines. So I would say it's inevitable that he ended up with a notion of the self that is the mind. If you're a rationalist, why would you go any further than that? Why would you suppose you're not the mind? It's not reasonable to suppose you're not the mind, because reason itself is located in the mind. So if you're a rationalist and you're using reason, of course you're going to get stuck. You're going to go as far as the mind and then stop there. You have to be a trans-rationalist. You have to close down reason. You have to go beyond the mind to actually experience consciousness as distinct from the mind. And that takes meditation. That takes Patanjalian, Chittavriti Nirodha kinds of practices. So if you don't do those, of course you'd think the self is the mind. Why would you think anything else? It's only meditation to the transrational activity in the form of Chittavriti Nirodha that takes you to a place beyond the mind. So we can offer our namaha to Plato, but maybe perhaps in his next life he took birth somewhere right in the Himalayas, and he met somebody who taught him how to meditate, and then that would have been a nice next birth for Plato, perhaps. Now then, so all right, now my life force is here. It's never satiated. Now this is not Kapila or Kadama, it's Shaunaka, who's one of the reciters of the Bhagavatam. It's never satiated repeatedly hearing about the Lord of the Vedas. That's Krishna, Vishnu. Devotees are never tired of thinking about hearing and speaking about their beloved Ishvara. Just like a mother is never tired of talking to her friends about the newborn baby or little child. You're always talking about, well, my little child did this and that, right? Mother never gets tired of it. Well, you might after a while, but you don't with Bhagavan. That is one of the characteristics of a bhakta. You never get sick of it ever. So he is the best of men and the foremost of all yogis. Purushottama. I think I'm not sure the best of men is a good translation. He's the best Purusha. I think I think I made him. I don't think I should have translated this as men, because that suggests he's a human being. No, the term is Purushottama. He's the Uttama Purusha, the Uttama, the best of Purushas. So if I were to do this again, he's the best of beings. And the foremost of all yogis, Yogeshvara, at the end of the Gita, Krishna, at the very, very end of the Gita, when, it goes back to Vyas talking to, the Gita is really Vyas. No, not Vyas. It's really Dhritarashtra talking to Sanjaya. Then Sanjaya calls him Yogeshvara, the Lord of Yoga. So, the foremost of all yogis. Okay, there's different ways of talking. Okay, let's show Bhagavan. So please narrate to me whatever deeds the Lord performed. This is what the bhakta wants. Not just bliss of be situated in the bliss of the Atman. How boring would that be all eternity? A static, passive, no action, no qualities, just a sort of eternal, infinite, blissful state of consciousness. The bhaktas are like, you can keep it. We don't want it. We want to be with Bhagavan in the eternal realms of Bhagavan, the Satchidananda realms of pure consciousness, where Krishna and Vishnu and the devotees abide forever in forms made of pure Satchidananda Brahman. And when Krishna, the Ishvara, enters the universe, Bhagavan, these deeds are delightful to the devotee. So please narrate to me whatever deeds that Lord performed through his own potency, not impelled by samskaras or the kleshas or anything else, out of his own inherent free will. I am a faithful soul, and these deeds are praiseworthy. So this is a huge part of bhakti, is being absorbed in the stories of Bhagavan, my friends. If you want to get a sense of whether you're a bhakta or not, in the sort of in the Hindu frame of reference, read the stories and see if you become attracted. You may not be attracted to all the stories of Bhagavan, but there may be a particular manifestation of Bhagavan and that attracts your heart. Then actually Bhagavan, it's Bhagavan who attracts your heart. It's Bhagavan who causes that attractions to manifest in your mind. So all we have to do is sincerely open our hearts to Bhagavan, and then in the beginning, maybe you meet a guru, and then you kind of adopt the form of Ishvara that your guru, that's in your lineage, or that is, part of your guru's lineage. That's pretty usual. It doesn't have to be like that. You open up your heart. I sometimes compare it to dating. You date Ishvara. How do you date? I don't know, but nowadays it's online. I have no idea. But let's make up a story. You get to know somebody. You get to know someone, and you go out and you get to know them, and you talk and da da da. So that's what you do with Ishvara. You read the Devi Purāṇa, you read the Ramayana, you read the Krishna Lila, you read the Shiva Purāṇa, and you see what attracts your heart. And it's ultimately not you actually. If you're really sincere, it's Krishna, it's Bhagavan that will plant that seed of attraction in our minds. So we have to just be sincere and open our heart to God, and first of all recognize there must be a God beyond me. That's a very important first step. If you think you're God, well, good luck with that. Remain in delusion then. That's delusional. That's like thinking you're Jesus Christ or something. I'm sure there's a few people walking around thinking that they're this, that, and the other. But so the first step is that there must be a Bhagavan. It's not me, because I can't create a universe. I can't even create nothing. I can't even make whatever, peanut butter sandwich. Bread falls apart. So that's the first step, and then once we make that step, and then you realize reason can get you that far, can tell you that there must be something beyond me, and there must be an intelligence behind the creation. Reason, that's the last stop. Reason that's the last stop for reason. You get up. That's it. A terminal. That's termini. That's the the port authority. Get up the train there. Reason can't take you any further. Once you get to that place, there must be an intelligence. Then all you can do is surrender and beg that intelligence to manifest and guide and manifest in your life. So one way of doing that is you say, okay, let's that but intelligence has to reveal itself, my friends. Your intelligence can't grasp it. There's nothing rational about Krishna being blue with a peacock feather. What's rational about that? Absolutely not. It's completely trans-rational. All these forms of Ishvara. That's why we think they're mythology. We don't, because our reason doesn't know what to do with it. If you're a rationalist, you don't want to go beyond reason. So you encounter Davy with 16 arms, and your reason is like, well, hang on a minute, that's empirically impossible. Okay, mythology then. If you're trapped in buddhi, in your rationality, of course you're going to end up thinking it's all mythology. So you have to give all that up and recognize, you don't become a fool. You take reason as far as it can take you, but you have to recognize, how far it's going to go. It's like you have a vehicle. It's only going to go as fast as it's going to go, and it's going to run out of gas, and that's it. So your reason is going to run out of gas. And at that point, you've at a place where you know there's something greater than you, and then you surrender to it. And if you genuinely, you don't have to know anything, you don't have to know Sanskrit, nothing. You just have to be sincere. That being will come to you in the form of a sacred text, in the form of whatever it might be, a teacher, in the form of the mantra. It will come to you. You do not have to worry. You do not have to fret. You don't have to sort of go running around like we all did in the 70s, hitchhiking about and running around India for years on end. And they were and getting sick and God knows what. But it was all right. It was a good use of Rajas. Don't have to do any of that, my friend. So read the stories. It's a great place to start, and invite Bhagavan to steal your heart in the form of one of these wonderful divine presences. So please narrate to
1
me.
hour now.
Been recording for an hour,
Okay.
Professor.
Eleonora, can we do how about we do Krishna Lila next? Would you accept that next class, next session? Because I want to just do a little bit more of this.
What can I do?
No, you can say you promise, and you have to keep your promise. You could say that.
Yeah, yeah, I can.
You have to let me
Wait.
off, otherwise, Satyam. You have to be Satyam. Do you want let's can we do it next class?
Of course.
Yeah? You sure?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Right, now stop. How do we do that? Right, record. Wait, stop. Record. Stop recording. But it's really important, actually, to gain insight into the mind of a bhakta. What is all this? What I mean, these are not just stories. They're meant to capture our minds. They're meant to give us love of God, my friends. This is how you get love of God in the Indian traditions. We use this word love of God so vaguely, but it's very specific. You fall in love with the forms of Bhagavan and the stories of Bhagavan, and there's so many of them. Now, so let's jump. So please narrate to me the deeds of the Lord performed through his own potency, out of his inherent free will. I am a faithful soul, and these deeds are praiseworthy. So Suta replied, at this feeling pleased at being requested in this way about metaphysical subjects, the noble Maitreya, friend of Vyas the great composer, proceeded to speak the following words to Vidura. Don't worry about all this genealogy. Maitreya said, because the Bhagavatam is a story within a story, there's various narrators, there's different layers to the Bhagavatam. Don't worry about it. After his father had set out for the forest, Kapila resided there in that forest of Bindusara, designed to please his mother, Devahuti. Sorry, what did I say, Kunti? I'm sorry, correct myself. Previously I said Kunti. No, it's Devahuti. Kunti, of course, is the Mahabharata, mother of the Pandavas. I'm sorry. So now, one day, remembering the words of Brahma, that she would have a son and it would be Vishnu, Brahma, the creator, this is not with a big C. Notice I put a little c, because Brahma is a secondary creator. He's more like an engineer. He takes the Prakriti that of Vishnu's Prakriti. So Vishnu is the creator, but Vishnu's not going to be there. Vishnu doesn't work. So therefore, he empowers Brahma to actually create the forms of the universe. So Brahma is a jiva like us. He's an Atman like us. He's sometimes called Ishvara, but he's not Ishvara like Shiva or Vishnu or Devi. So you could be a Brahma, but you could never be Vishnu in the Vaishnava tradition. Never. Existentially, ontologically impossible. So remembering the words, Devahuti, and notice the names, by the way, in case you're interested. You know, we are in the, just like we have Christian names, right? We may or may not be Christians, but many of us have Christian names. I don't. I have a Celtic name. My dad was a Celt. But my sister has all the Catholic names because our mother was Italian. So she's Pia Maria Luisa. And I'm like, Edwin. So, but notice, but there in the Vedic culture, Devahuti means calling out to the gods, meaning Vedic ritualism. Remember, Vedic ritualism is the mainstream religion of the day, so people had names, many people had names that were associated with Vedic, especially if they were Brahmins. Their names reflected the culture in which they exist, just like we have Christian names, whether or not we're Christians or not. You know, we're called John and Paul and Peter and all these names. So Devahuti, for the Sanskritists, it's Deva, right? And Huti, who to call out to. Huti, the calling out to the gods. So the Huti are the Vedic mantras. Are you calling out to the gods? O Indra, I am your faithful worshipper. Provide us with boons of life. You are great, O Indra. That's a Huti. They're very blunt, sort of requests. The Vedic, some of these hymns. So Devahuti asked her son, when he was sitting leisurely, to disclose the highest path of truth. So now she's approaching her son as a guru. Just as Arjuna has been buddy cousin of Krishna, right up until the Gita, he's the cousin. They were buddies. They go out together. They hang out together. They spent their whole right. But all of a sudden, there's the second chapter of the Gita, right? When he realizes that he can't figure it out, he says, "Shasteham shadhimam tvam prapanam." I don't want to be cousin. You just instruct me. Shishaste, I'm now your disciple. Shadhimam, imperative. Shad, he. Shadhimam, instruct me. Tvam prapanam, I am surrendered to you. This is like 12, 11, somewhere around there. The relationship changes. He now doesn't want to be the sort of familial cousin kind of buddy because they're more or less the same age and they're cousins. And then the same thing now with Devahuti. She doesn't want to be mom anymore. She realizes that she has a very special son. So now she wants to approach him as guru. So she says, Devahuti said, I'm completely disgusted with the illusory thirst for sense pleasure, O Lord. Remember that he created that fantastic palace? And her husband had manifested 9 forms? So she had like nine, she could enjoy it, and they're all her husband. So she could enjoy 9, at the same time. I mean, it's kind of certainly erotic. And so in other words, I guess what the whole point of that is, she had the best possible boga that you could imagine. Celestial palace, gems, everything was fantastic. She entered the lake, remember, and her withered body of a tapasvini. Tapasvini. She had been done all this tapas, right? So she's a tapasvini, like a yogini. And her body was emaciated and all of that. And she went into the lake and she came out beautiful and gorgeous and fragrant and maidservants and celestial palace and same with her husband, gorgeous, and he manifested 9 husbands so she could enjoy, I don't know, I don't know how enjoyable that would be. But anyway, 9, all right. And so she had the best boga available. And look what she says now. I'm completely disgusted with the illusory thirst for sense pleasure. Why is it illusory? Because it never satisfies. It's a thirst. Thirst is a big word in Buddhism. Trishna. It's another word for desire. Why is it illusory? It's all in the mind. We think in the mind, oh, I'm going to, enjoy this. I'm going to enjoy that. It's a mental state. But when we actually engage in that particular boga, it never satisfies. So you become disgusted with it. I've fallen into a state of darkest ignorance, O Master, right? Thinking I'm the body and the mind. I'll find happiness through my body mind. You are the guide over that dense darkness of ignorance, tamas. This is Maya. Maya is the gunas, which is so difficult to overcome. By your grace today, after many births, I have gained my eye of truth. So this is what we need. We need to encounter Bhagavan. We need to encounter this truth. How do we do that? We encounter the Guru, but the Guru can be the sacred text, my friends. You're safe with the texts. They're not going to cheat you. These classical texts that have been around, that are accepted by everybody, not these obscure texts that nobody ever heard of, like Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Who ever heard of that, right? Until Krishnamacharya, plucked it out of obscurity because it has asana. It was a whole chapter on asana. There's no other reason, right? Notice he plucks it. He plucks out the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, but he ignores chapter 4, which you stick a straw in your penis and blow. How about, well, what happened to that? Chapter 4. Well, that gets conveniently edited out, doesn't it? So what's the Hatha Yoga Pradipika? It's got some asana in it, 36 asanas. So, okay, well, we need to have some support for this asana. So Hatha Yoga Pradipika, all of a sudden, everybody in the West is reading Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Nobody ever heard of it in India. And it's a left-handed Tantra text. How are you going to have a conservative high-caste Brahmana like Krishnamacharya appropriating a text like that? What would impel him to do that, other than the fact that it's got 36 asanas in it? And then you have to, and then you have to convene. You forget about chapter 4. You do a Svādhyāya, and you go, okay, hold on, it's chapter 2. Here we are. All right, that's it. Now we're going to read the Gita. You just stop reading it as soon as it gets a bit weird. So, yeah. So therefore, what? So you're the guide, right? Okay. I fall into the state of darkest ignorance. Okay? So therefore, we need to find. She was blessed. The Vishnu became her son. How do we get blessed, my friends, without getting ripped off? Stick with the sacred texts. You won't get cheated. And surrender to Ishvara. And then if you need to find a guru, because the texts do say, we can't deny that, the texts do say, you need a guru, but it gets very understated. Bhagavatam is a few verses about the guru. It's the sectarian literature that goes guru, 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 guru. All it becomes very strong in like 16th century in the Bhakti and the Shakta traditions, Vaishnava traditions. There's massive stress on the guru. You don't see it in the Bhagavatam. It's there, but not in that same way. And what does the guru do? He comes for 5 minutes and goes off. Narada comes and Vyasa is sitting there despondent. Narada comes, tells him why he's despondent, goes off. Vishnu comes to speak to Dhruva, gives him the mantra, goes off. All this worship of the guru and adoration of the guru. Where's that? It's not in the Bhāgavata Purāṇa. And so avoid all that, my friends. It's really not healthy spiritually, either for the guru, nor is it healthy for the disciple, like to give up critical intelligence like that. The guru, you approach the guru for instruction, and then you go, and that's it. You follow or you don't follow. That's the guru. You don't be groveling around at the feet of the guru and all of this. I tell you, honestly, I'm sorry. You've heard me speak strongly about this. I've seen so much of this in 45 years, and almost half a century now. And it's not okay. All this worship of the guru, spiritually detrimental for both parties. So, if you want to avoid being caught up like that, let the text be your guru. And then surrender to Ishvara. And if Ishvara wants you to meet somebody, make that Ishvara's problem. It's not you want Ishvara. So then just say, Ishvara, if I need to have a guru, you arrange that. And give me the intelligence to understand who is a genuine bhakta. Give me the intelligence. And throw the problem at Ishvara. Put the problem at Ishvara's feet. Don't go running around looking for a guru. You'll get ripped off. Why will you get ripped off? Because what are you looking with? You're looking with your Klishta mind. Your mind is a Maya mind. Our minds are impure, so we're going to end up with some. We're only going to see reality through our impure minds. We're going to end up with some. Our minds are going to say, "Oh, look at this wonderful." Charisma's got nothing to do with it. Knowledge of Sanskrit's got nothing to do with it. Learning has got nothing to do with it. But because of our minds are afflicted, we might get attracted by these external things. So if you want to be safe, don't go running around looking for a guru. Surrender to Ishvara and let Ishvara deal with that problem. And if you're sincere, you'll encounter, Ishvara will take care of you. And Ishvara will, if you need to find somebody, or Ishvara will take care of providing a guide and association. Don't use your klishta mind. Especially us Westerners, we have this ridiculous romance model, which we get from our romance. We think, like our romance model, right? We fall in love model. And then we apply that to the guru. We think we're going to fall in love. Someone's going to just touch us on the head and we're going to fall in love. That nonsense comes from our Western, kind of romantic model. It's very different from the Indian model, which is more kind of dharma and the rest of it. So please, I've just seen so many people get ripped off, and so many gurus have fallen down. So many gurus, and they're not necessarily bad or they're not necessarily, they might be sincere, but they put themselves up on this pedestal they can only fall from. So just surrender to Ishvara and request Ishvara to provide all of your needs. And if you sincerely say, it's all about Ishvara anyway. And then Ishvara will, you'll find appropriate sangha. You'll find, the texts, and you'll get guidance. Trust Ishvara. I'm sorry, I keep saying it, but I just, I feel so strongly about this just based on 50 years of observation of this guru business. So, I'm completely disgusted, she says, with the illusory thirst for sense pleasure, Lord. I've fallen into a state of darkest ignorance, O Master. You are the guide. So guide can be there. But let Ishvara be the guide. Let Ishvara take over all of our spiritual needs. Krishna says in the Gita, Yogakshema Vahamyaham. I will take care of your Yogakshema. I'll take care of your yogic needs. Don't go running around thinking you're the doer and you're going to find the guru. And no. You surrender to Ishvara, and then Ishvara takes care of all of that. Otherwise, it's just a hankara, and you end up ripped off. Now, look, verse 10. This impediment to life, this is the klesha, the notion of I, mean, and mine. Patanjali calls it asmita. The Gita calls it ahamkara. This sense that I am the body-mind. I am female, I am male, I am Hindu, I am a professor, I am a student. Me, mine. This is the ego. It's created by you. Why? Because it's Prakriti. What is Prakriti? It's the three gunas. You've all looked at the Sankhya chart. Then from Prakriti comes Buddhi, intelligence, and from Buddhi comes Ahankara. This is Krishna's, and Krishna says, Mama Maya. It's my Maya. So that's why we surrender to Bhagavan. It's Krishna's Maya. Mameva ye prapadyante Maya metam tarantita. You surrender to me, Krishna says. Then you cross over Maya. All we have to do is so simple, my friends. You surrender to Bhagavan. And if you need to meet a guru or this, that, or the other, Bhagavan will make that happen. Don't go looking for a guru, because you're looking with your corrupt mind, with your avidya mind. So the lens that you'll look is like wearing, brown sunglasses. You're going to end up seeing everything brown. We're going to look for a guru through our afflicted, our minds, our avidya minds. Of course, we're going to end up with some inappropriate person. So you don't need to do that. You surrender to Ishvara. Ishvara will take care of that. You all know my story, right? What my first guru was. So, I have, it's a big experience. Now, Therefore, it is you, O Lord, who should dispel my illusion. It's Bhagavan. And Bhagavan manifests as a guru. That's actually one of the manifestations, but it's Ishvara that will manifest in that way, not you running around looking. Ishvara manifests through the sacred texts. Ishvara manifests in the form of japa. Ishvara manifests in the form of the murti if you have a puja practice. I offer homage to you. You are the supreme knower of the real goal of life. I desire to know about the relationship between Purusha and Prakriti. So this is classical Sankhya. So now she's framing her question in the language of Sankhya, right? It's not quite the same as the language of Vedanta. The language of Vedanta is Brahman and Atman. But the language of Sankhya is Purusha and Prakriti. I have submitted myself to you for refuge, to Bhagavan. You are worthy of refuge. You are the axe that cuts the tree of samsara for your dependence. I'll say it one more time, my friends. So much of this surrender to the guru is sidetrack. It's like sidetracking. It's deviating consciousness from Bhagavan. And it's being deviated into some human who might be sincere, but is trapped by the ego, same as you. Anyone accepting adulation and worship and all of that, that's a no-no. A real guru would never accept any of that. Real guru is totally renounced, my friends. Doesn't sit there on some big seat, clad in silk, accepting worship and service. Of course not. I mean, we know that. How do we get suckered into that? Be smart. Use your Ishvara in the heart. Follow your instinct. Does that seem spiritual to you? Worshipping some human, sitting on a big seat and accepting adoration and puja? How does that even resonate with your own common sense? Don't do it. It's up to you what you do, but don't get ripped off like we did, like I did. So many of us did, actually. Now, you're worthy of refuge. You are the axe that cuts the tree of samsara for your dependence. So Kapila, his handsome face gently smiling, listened to the faultless request of his mother and welcomed it in his mind. A request such as this advances the goal of liberation for saintly people who are self-controlled, right? So real teachers love it. There's nothing that gives a real a teacher more pleasure than students, or not students, but beings that are asking these kinds of questions, isn't it? If you specialize in something, it gives you great pleasure when someone takes interest in whatever it is you specialize in. So if you're absorbed in the pursuit of spiritual knowledge, you're very, very happy when people approach you and ask these questions. So the Lord said, I hold the yoga system. This is pre-Patanjali. Patanjali says his Anushasanam, he's continuing in the old teachings. So Kapila says, I hold the yoga teachings directed towards the Atman to be the highest goal for humankind, right? Which is interesting because later on the text is going to say that the highest goal is actually Vishnu, not the Atman. So this is chapter 3. And again, the text is taking us step by step, just like the Bhagavad Gita does. Chapter 2 of the Gita is all about the Atman. There's no bhakti in chapter 2, or one verse at the end. And then there's karma yoga. And then bhakti takes over later on. But first we have to know who we are. And then we can think about, well, what's the world? And then what, and who's behind it all? And what's God? But we start off, as Descartes so famously framed it, that all we really know is that we exist. So we have to start off with, well, who are we? That's the first question. And then we proceed to, and okay, fine, who are we? And then what's the world, and why are we in the world? And these are secondary. These are a next level sorts of questions. First of all, who are we? And then the why questions, and why are we here? And what happens at death? And then who's behind it all is a couple of stages further along. And then you get to bhakti. So this chapter 3 is going to be classical Sankhya, and classical Sankhya, it's about the Atman. Even Patanjali, my friends, there's no bhakti in Patanjali. What is the role of Patanjali? What is the role of Ishvara in Patanjali. Samadhi Siddh here. He gives you your experience of your Atman. But who is he? He's a Purusha Vishesha. He's a special kind of Purusha. He Purvesham Api Guruhu. He was the guru of the ancients. He was Klesha Karma Samaya Anabhichinna, never been affected by Maya. Well, who is he? Why don't we ask that question? Patanjali doesn't give us that. Why? Because Patanjali's project is the Atman. So there are texts which take us to the Atman, and other texts which take us to the Bhagavatam. There are other texts which take us to Bhagavan. The Bhagavatam takes us to Bhagavan, but in the early chapters, just like the Gita, focus on the Atman first. So here we have this focus on the Atman. So he says, that's the highest, the ultimate detachment, right? If you realize the Atman, from this comes the ultimate detachment from happiness and distress, sukha dukkha. Why? Because happiness and distress are in the mind. And jnana takes us beyond the mind to the Atman. So as long as we're not in Svarupa Vastanam, as long as we're not absorbed in the Atman, we're absorbed in the mind. And when we're absorbed in the mind, what is the mind? Happy, sad, sukha, dukkha, sukha, dukkha. So you can never maintain your sukha. You can never maintain happiness states. And unhappiness also comes and goes. So we want to be detached from that. We have to go to a place beyond the mind. Well, what is the place beyond the mind? The Atman, right? I hold the yoga system directed towards the Atman to be the highest goal for humankind in a lower sense, right? In the sense of ultimate detachment from happiness and distress, meaning suffering. Because we start the spiritual life suffering. Bhakti in the beginning is we approach God because we're suffering. There's no love there. There's no bhakti there in the beginning. We follow the rules because we're suffering. It's called Vedi Bhakti. That's a topic for another day. Can't say you love God. Anyone saying they love God, love is a gift from God. It's not in our minds. It doesn't come from in here. So it starts with suffering. Right, what did I just do? We want to get back to share. All right. So bada boom. Now, so today, I will explain to you the same yoga system that I imparted of old, right? In the Gita, Krishna says, well, I gave it to Vivishwan right at the beginning of creation. O sinless lady, inclusive of all its limbs, sarva anga. Right, there's your anga, ashtanga. Sarva means all. So this is the Bhagavatam's version of Patanjali and yoga. That's why I wanted to read it with you. It's not central to actually the Bhagavatam at all, but it's there. So this is the yoga of the sages who are eager to hear. Consciousness is considered to be inclined towards either bondage or liberation. Patanjali says, Bhogapavarga. Your consciousness can flow out into the world seeking pleasure, flows out through the mind and the senses, trying to find pleasure in the objects of the senses, but that's bondage. Why? Because every action, when consciousness flows out through the mind and the senses and acts in the world, it plants the seeds of reaction. We're bound by that reaction. So when consciousness flows outward, acts, reaction, bondage, or liberation, because the same mind can be used to chitta-vritti nirodha and go inward. So therefore, consciousness is inclined towards either bondage or liberation. Attached to the gunas, if gunas means the world out there, and even the internal psychic world of emotions and intellect and seeking love, all this kind of seeking emotional partnership. Partnership, we're always whining because we go, oh, our partners are this, that, and the other. They're not, we're attached to the gunas. It's all just the gunas, and we get, and this bondage, we get trapped by it, and we're never satisfied. Whoever's satisfied, is anybody out there satisfied with their partner? Well, maybe somebody will say, yes, I am. Fine. But the Bhagavatam takes a pretty heavy view on that, I have to say, with due respect to you all. So there. So now, Consciousness we're never going to be fully satisfied, my friends, even if you have the best partner in the world. It's always going to be imperfect. If you seek perfection, not you don't have to dump your partner, but you have to traverse together the spiritual path towards a state beyond emotionality, beyond attachment to each other, beyond all of that. So consciousness is considered to be inclined either towards bondage or liberation, attached to the gunas, which means the world out there, means the body is made of the guna, and the mind and the emotions and the intellect, they're all made of the gunas. So if we could be attached to our intellectual abilities or intellectual pursuits. We could be attached to emotionality, seeking our romantic partner, supportive, emotionally aligned partners, all this stuff, all this talk. It's all gunas. Attached to the gunas, it experiences bondage. On the other hand, devoted to the Supreme Person, do you notice how it goes backwards and forwards between Atman and Bhagavan? It's interesting. So the Bhagavatam does that. It's it's kind of recognizing the Jnana traditions and honoring them and even promoting them, but it's going to take us more and more and more towards the Supreme Person. When the mind is freed from the impurities of desire and greed, the kleshas, raga, which are produced from the false notion of I, me, and mine. Ragas come from asmitara. Think of the ordering of the kleshas in Patanjali. Avidya is the support of them all, but then asmita, right? So it starts with ignorance. Ignorance is you ignore the Atman. Ignore uns. So ignore the Atman. Now, if consciousness is not focused on the Atman, then it's flowing out. What's it flowing out through? The body and the mind. So that becomes asmi, I am. If you don't say Brahmasmi, if we're not absorbed in Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, our consciousness is not internalized, it's flowing through the subtle and the gross body. So then we think, Asmi, I am. That's the Asmita of Patanjali, the second klesha. I am this body and this mind. It's very logical, very sequential. The minute you think I am this body and mind, and that's who you think you are, so you're looking for happiness through your body and mind because that's who you think you are, then you experience things that feel good to your body and mind, and that leaves a nice samskara, and that's a raga. And you do things in the world that don't feel good to your body mind, and that doesn't feel good, and that's a dvesha. So these are sequential. It starts with avidya. That's Patanjali says. Mula, it's the root, uttaresha. That morphs into ashmita. Because if we're not Atman, then what's consciousness absorbed in? Asmi, who am I? This body mind. And then you get your raga dveshas. What feels good to body mind, what feels bad. This is the same system. Kapila here, because is a founder of Sankhya. This is Sankhya. That's what Sankhya is. It is this Patanjali and the 24 elements and all of that. But when it becomes freed from the impurities, they're impure. They taint our consciousness with this illusion that happiness can be found through fulfillment of a desire. It can't, my friends, and we all know it. We all know it because we experience it time and time and time and time and time again. These desires are temporary. They are, and they don't satisfy. What are we so stupid? What's wrong with us? It's Maya. There's no other explanation. Madness. It has to be divine. Krishna says, Devi, he, Esha, Guna, Mai. Devi. It's divine. Mama Maya. It's my Maya. So how do you get out of it? Mame veye prapadyante. Krishna says, surrender to me. It's my Maya. You can't do it on your own. You just keep chasing the same stupid desires that never satisfied us in the first place, and we got nothing better, so we keep chasing them again and again and again. There's only one explanation for that: mad. And that's another way of thinking of Maya: madness. Right now, okay. So when we're freed from the impurity, it's impure. It's tainting consciousness of desire and greed, which are produced from this false notion, ahankara, asmita, of I, me, and mine. It becomes pure, equipoised, transcends happiness and distress. It's no longer in that mental plane of happy, sukha dukkha, sukha dukkha, sukha dukkha. It's gone beyond that. When this occurs, a person realizes the soul is autonomous. It's not the mind. It's a separate entity. Consciousness can exist in its svarupa, in its own nature. Patanjali, second, third verse. Tada drashtu svarupa, its own essence. Autonomous. Svarupa means autonomous. Transcendent to Prakriti. It doesn't have to be absorbed in the mind. It's eternal, self-effulgent, minute. The Upanishads call it. The Upanishads say, and they're just being metaphorical. He said, take the tip of a hair, split it into 10,000. One of the 10,000s of the tip of a hair is the size of the Atman, smaller than the smallest. It's just being metaphorical. It's just minute. You could say infinitesimal. But we don't know what that means. So the Upanishad says, okay, we don't know what that means. Fine. Take the tip of a hair, divide it into 10,000, then maybe you're in the, that helps you sort of understand that it's very small. All right. So now, when consciousness is immersed in knowledge and renunciation, we're renouncing the desires, because we renounce desires. It's not like, with really real renunciation, my friends. It's not forced, artificial, suppression. It's when you realize that the desires cause suffering. At that point, it's obvious they should be given up. You see so many people, living in ashrams. I mean, I lived in ashrams for 7 years, so you artificially suppress. Artificial, and then it explodes, and then there's scandals. So, we have to perceive that desires, when we can understand that desires actually are cause of suffering, then it's an act of common sense. Call it wisdom if you want, or how about we just call it common sense? That we give up the sources of suffering. We instead of calling it viveka, we call it the common sense aha. Right now, when consciousness is immersed in knowledge and renunciation as well as devotion, one realizes that Prakriti acts with indifference. The laws of nature are indifferent. Action, reaction. That's it. Bang. According to how our desires, the gunas envelop us and take over our, situation. So the gunas are indifferent. They act according to, it's ultimately our own desires, our own free will. She acts with indifference, right? It's not that, oh, God hates me or anything. Through this realization, its power is dispelled. Now, 19, there is no auspicious path for yogis to attain Brahmans. We're still using this, still in the realm of jnana, that is comparable to the practice of bhakti to Bhagavan. So, it's introducing Bhagavan into the jnana system. So there's still this jnana system, Sankhya, the emphasis on Atman, but it's introducing Bhagavan obviously in a much stronger way than Patanjali does. And the rest of the text will increase that strength. It will turn up the bhakti dial more and more and more as we progress through book 3, book 4, book 5. Who is the until we get the crown jewel of book 10, we're ready at that point to encounter that Bhagavan, that Brahman, that Ishvara, the creator of multiple universes, that supreme being crawling around in the dust of Braj. Otherwise, we're going to completely misunderstand what the heck that is all about. The sages know that it is attachment, desire, that is the ever-present snare of the soul. It's desire that traps us in samsara, because of desire we act, and from action comes reaction, and that's samsara, nothing other than that. It's grounded in desire, which in turn is grounded in ego. It's true, and grounded in ignorance, but we don't really see ignorance. We don't really see asmita. We see our desires. We see it. We can witness them. So it's a kind of like a place we can start with our desire, because it's something that we perceive, and we can perceive it. You see a desire rise and you can witness it. You know, you want to have a piece of chocolate, so you witness the desire rises and you contemplate it, and then you form an intention, like the Upanishads say, the Mundaka. You desire it, then you form an intention, then you act, and then there's reaction. And you can perceive the whole process unfolding. You can perceive dissatisfaction setting in after that the fulfillment of the desire. Either you want a second dose, you have one chocolate, oh, it was good, and you want a second one, which means you're not satisfied then, doesn't it? So then you have a second one, and then a third one. At a certain point, you get disgusted with saccharine, white sugar, sweetness, just awfulness. And then at some point, it all goes nasty on you. That's it. You can witness it every time, and yet we still kind of like we still, because we don't have anything better. That's why we don't have anything better. So we keep chugging along, same old, same old. Thomas Sweets here in Princeton. Thomas, they got a really good chocolates. I stopped there last night, so I better shut up. Or I better talk to myself anyway. All right, now. Okay. Now, so attachment is the snare of the soul. Yet, when attachment is directed to the real sadhus, the real bhaktas, attachment opens the door to liberation because the real bhaktas are simply interested in Bhagavan, and they're not going to chit chat, and they're not going to talk about the weather, and they're not going to talk about football, and they're not going to talk about politics. They only want to talk about Bhagavan. So that's Sangha. Just be careful of the gurus. But certainly, if we're blessed to have at least some kind of bhakti association, even if you have just one or two confidants. I would say now I've been in this game 50 years. There's probably, I could count the fingers of one hand, real bhakta, friends that I can really be honest with, not play ego games, not put on a show, can really share my mind in good, bad, and ugly, doubts, everything. You'll be lucky if you have two or three, my friends. Genuine bhakti friends, and that's a blessing. So attachment to those, the text is saying, attachment that opens the door to liberation, because that's not a material attachment. It's not a body-mind attachment. It's an attachment to Bhagavan and to discussing the spiritual path with those you trust. You have to have a little bit of that. So who are these sadhus then? The virtues of a sadhu are tolerance, compassion, always kind, not judgmental, not mean, friendship to all beings, no enemies, and peacefulness. So they have to have qualities. Otherwise, they're probably going to start hitting us up for donations. That's a warning sign, right? Start asking for money. You think, hang on a minute, I mean, that should be obvious, but it's not obvious to so many. I was a victim. I can't judge anybody else, so I got sucked up into all that in my younger days. So, we live and learn. Right now, sadhus perform staunch bhakti to me with undeviating minds. They never leave the path of bhakti. They're always they do their pujas, they do their mantras, they do always reading the Bhāgavatam. For my sake, they have abandoned all actions, and they have renounced family and friends. So now we're talking about the Babas, the renunciate kind of dimension of bhakti. Those who've renounced everything, and that's why you go to holy places. The text is going to say that's why we go to Vrindavan. Although unfortunately, Vrindavan has become so commercialized now. You have to look. You have to go away from the old town. Actually, it's like Assisi in Italy. It's become so commodified, so commercialized, and so But there are babas to be found, genuine renunciates that are simply there. Everything is just Krishna. And it's very enlivening to be in their association. So fully absorbed in me, who are the bhaktas? Fully absorbed in me. They hear and narrate the relishable narratives of my activities. The sufferings of the world did not afflict them, since their consciousness is absorbed in me. If your consciousness is absorbed in the body, then you're aware of the pains of the and the suffering of the body. If the consciousness is absorbed in the mind, we're aware of our emotional, all of the unfulfillment, and my husband did this and my wife did that and my kids are doing it, right? But if your consciousness is absorbed in Bhagavan, then the various sufferings of the world do not afflict them. It's really true. You could experience this apart from the spiritual path. Your mind could be so fixed on something, it could be just some mundane thing, but then you don't realize whatever that you forget about your aches and pains. Anyone can experience this at any time. So sukha dukkha is in the mind, actually. Happiness and distress is in the mind. So the mind is fixed here. That you say fixed on Bhagavan, then these sufferings do not afflict them. So the sadhus, virtuous lady, are free of all attachments. Indeed, they themselves remove the faults of attachment from others. A real sadhu is not going to be this lovey-dovey. Oh, let's all sit and chant Om. Oh, yeah, you're cool. Everything's cool. Yeah, you're good. No, they're going to they're going to talk jnana all the time. They're going to deliver scapi di jnana, knowledge slaps. Sadhus are, they're kind and loving, but they talk truth. They don't flatter and this New Age spirituality. Oh, everything's cool. Yeah, everything isn't cool. We're all suffering. The real sadhus speak truth. They tell us truth, and sometimes you have to speak kindly. The Patanjali says, Satyam has to. Ahimsa is the first. Satyam is the second. So you cannot speak truth if it causes ahimsa, if it causes pain. Sometimes you can't say anything. So you have to be careful in how you speak truth. It has to be, kind and loving. But if you're kind and loving, people know that. They know you're not just putting them down. You're genuinely a real Baba is sharing knowledge. Otherwise, don't go to a sadhu if you want compliments. If you want, oh yeah, it's all cool. Go to a new age, what have you. Go to some new age workshop where everything is sit around and hold hands and chant Om. But a real sadhu will speaks truth, and that can be, and we need to hear that. And it needs to cut down our ego, my friends, not support it. Or maybe I'm being a bit unfair, but I don't know. So the sadhus, a virtuous lady, free of attachments. Indeed, they themselves remove the faults of attachment. They point out our attachments. And that can be painful because we're attached to them. And then the sadhu just points it out. It's obvious to a sadhu. You're clinging to this. You're clinging to this illusion. And maybe in retrospect, you realize that they've been your best friend. So you should aspire for their association. Sadhus that are going to speak truth and who are themselves renounced. From association with saints, the realization of my power arises. These narratives of my activities become pleasing to the ears and the heart. As the mind becomes pure, we become attracted to the stories of Bhagavan. If the mind is too rajasic and tamasic, it can't sit and listen. It's just going to think they're fairy stories. So attraction, the stories are attractive, the mind, especially to the pure mind. By enjoying these stories, the narratives of my activities, this is the Leela, the stories of Krishna, of Rama, Devi, faith, love, and devotion quickly manifests consecutively on the path's liberation. Okay? By means of bhakti and contemplation of my creations, right? The God of natural theology is in this sort of line. That would be, whatever, 18th, 19th century European, what do you call that? Not deism, it's called God of Natural Theology is a name for that. Forget. A person experiences the arising of a detachment from sensual pleasure. That's the sign of progress on the spiritual path. You want to know if you're making progress? It's not about learning Sanskrit. It's not about philosophy. It's the arising of detachment from sensual pleasure. That means our mind is becoming attracted to spiritual truth. The side effect of which is disinterest in seeking illusory pleasure in the world of sense pleasure. Whether the pleasure is experienced in the past or heard about in scripture, meaning the Vedic scriptures. Vedic scriptures are, the old Vedic scriptures about attaining the celestial realms and attaining the good things of life. Engaged on the path of yoga and intent on the control of the mind, such a person will persevere with correct yogic practice. It takes time. Okay? So such a person, though not dedicating himself or herself to the gunas of Prakriti, right? If you're a yogi, you're not dedicating yourself to Prakriti, you're dedicating yourself to the pursuit of Atman. But rather through dedication to knowledge, the cultivation of a detachment from bhoga. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Yoga means renouncing material pleasures, my friends. At some point, and we have to keep reading it, because we're all trapped by it. We're all trapped by our desires. I'm no different. We're all trapped. We all have our right, Alice. Those what are those chips called in in the co-op? What are they called? The yummy ones. The
Lentil
vegan.
chips.
Which ones?
Lentil chips.
We indulge in them. Okay, enough of that. Right now. So now, yoga focused on me. That's bhakti yoga, not on the Atman. And bhakti. So the text it's interesting. The teachings go in and out of Atma focus and Bhagavan focus. Again, my explanation for that is it's leading us gently, through jnana, through moksha, through yoga of the Atman, and it taking us to a higher place of yoga of Bhagavan. But it's still honoring and respecting, because it is true we are Atmans, and it is true we can realize the Atman. And we attains me, Krishna says, while still in this world. Not that you die. We can attain Bhagavan with our practice in this world. I am the innermost. Okay. What type? So Devahuti, the mother, quickly says, we're running out of time. Let's just see. I think we'll stop here. Right. Well, let's read this, because let's see if we feel this is sexist. What type of bhakti to you is optimal, says Devahuti, and what should my sense activity be, by means of which I can easily attain your abode? Oh, you who are, and nirvana means something very different in the Bhagavatam than the Buddhists. We think it's a Buddhist term, but it was. It's mentioned 3 times in the Gita. It was a term used by everybody in the early stages, and then it becomes appropriated by Buddhism, and then eventually the Hindu traditions stop using it. But here it's used, in the Gita it's used. Oh, you who are the essence of nirvana, what is the nature of that yoga centered on Bhagavan that you previously spoke about? What is it? How do I do this bhakti yoga? How many limbs of yoga are there by which one attains an understanding of truth? Now look at this one. What do you think of this? Ladies, get ready. Manifest your many arms. Explain those to me, a woman, O Lord, such that I can easily understand that which is difficult to understand by your grace. My understanding of such things is limited. Now, how would you interpret that? You could interpret it, the text is saying women are more challenged than men. You could take that view. I don't take that view. I interpret that as saying women are generally denied access to knowledge in Vedic culture. They don't perform Vedic rituals. They generally don't study Vedanta. They don't study Vedanta. You have to be male Brahmin. So she's saying, explain that to me, a woman. It doesn't necessarily mean that women are somehow less capable. It just means that in the ancient Vedic culture, they were denied access. They were like anywhere in the world. Let's just pin this on India. like anywhere in the world. How about we say anywhere in the world up until the First World War, including the West? How about we say that? Women would be, even today, there's less opportunity. Women are always complaining about it, be underrepresented in fields of science and philosophy. So rather than say it's not a reflection, it's just that India was like the rest of the world, where women, didn't have the same opportunities to study these things. So that's how I would read this. Explain those to me, a woman, O Lord, such that I can easily understand that which is difficult to understand by your grace. My understanding of such things is limited, not because her intelligence is limited, it's because her understanding is limited. Why is it limited? Because it hasn't been given to her. After understanding the intention of his mother in this way, Kapila felt love for her. He had, after all, taken birth from her body. So he spoke to her about the knowledge of truth transmitted down through the ages that they call Sankhya, as well as about the yoga of the various forms of bhakti. Notice they're two different things, because Sankhya is not really about bhakti. Sankhya is about Purusham Prakriti, so it's about Atman. So he told her about the Jnana Marg, Jnana path of Jnana, Sankhya Jnana, same thing, synonyms. And then he told her, and then the yoga of the various forms of bhakti. But there's two different things here. So that's why the text goes back and forth, because they're two genuine goals. Attain realization of your own Atman and realization of Bhagavan. Okay, we read one more or two. Bhakti to Bhagavan has no cause. We don't know how we get the first samskaras, because Bhagavan it's no cause. So we know what the cause of the Atman path is: suffering. And then we think, well, how do I get out of suffering? And to some extent, bhakti is that. But to get bhakti, there's no cause. Because there's nothing you can do to force. Bhakti comes from Bhagavan. So there's nothing you could do to force Bhagavan to give you bhakti. Because Bhagavan does not force to do anything. So therefore, it's simply grace. So who gets the grace? We can't answer that question. It's called ahetuki, no cause. If there was a cause, it would become mechanical. Mechanical. As long as I sort of follow that cause, as long as I commit to that cause, I will get bhakti. Now, but that means the Bhagavan has to give me bhakti if I discover the cause and follow the cause. No, Bhagavan's completely autonomous and free. There is no cause. So that's why it says it's without cause. It's an interesting point. If there was a cause is connected to an effect. They're inseparable. So if you have a cause, you necessarily have an effect. So if bhakti has a cause, you necessarily would get bhakti. That means God would be trapped by your cause and effect logic and would no longer be autonomous. Do you see the point? So bhakti has no cause. Very hetuki, important. We'll almost out of time, and I just want to finish up with, let's have a look. We go here. It consists of sattva and the activities of the senses. It includes the performance of action. It includes that. That's not what it is. It includes dharma, action prescribed by scripture. Hang on, okay? It is the natural state of the mind when it's fixed on God. It is more profound than liberation. Liberation just gives you, notice that. It's deeper than liberation. Liberation only gives you your Atman. Bhakti dissolves the subtle body quickly. Right? That's the chitta, that's the kleshas, all of that. As soon as we're free of klesha, we don't need a subtle body anymore. You only need the body if you want to enjoy prakriti. That's what the body is given to you for. That's what the senses are for. The body is the senses, so that you can engage the sense objects, bhoga. You give up desire, you don't need body anymore. You don't need the mind to filter sense data. So then it dissolves, just like the digestive fire burns food that has been eaten. The Bhāgavata devotees associate among each other and celebrate my deeds, meaning the beautiful leelas. Their endeavors are devoted to me. They are satisfied serving my feet. Some of them do not desire to attain oneness. Okay, I don't have time to explain that. Okay, quickly. These saints, my mother, O mother, perceive my beautiful divine forms. Could be the deity, could be the stories, with their reddish eyes, smiling faces. They converse with them with pleasing words. Devotees have a personal relationship with their deities. These forms bestow blessings. All right. Can we read two more? Two more. Come on, come on. We've still got 2 minutes. Let's just read 2 more. Bhakti leads those whose hearts and life forces have been captivated by those forms. See, I'm captivated by Gopala. I'm captivated. I'm not so much by, I think everything else is cool. I think Shiva's cool. I'm not much of a Radha Krishna bhakta. I'm little Gopal. He's captivated. I can't get him out of my heart. I'm captivated by Gopal. And that's transrational. Their life forces have been captivated by those forms to my subtle abode, right? The realms, all of these forms have eternal divine realms in Brahman, made of Satchidananda, condensed consciousness. Even if they did not desire this, be careful. The form can capture your heart, even if you weren't expecting that. These forms have captivating limbs, sweet words, smiling glances. They perform wondrous pastimes. Beware, my friends, if you start reading these stories, your heart may be stolen forever. You become a bhakta, you become mad. Different kind of mad, though. And you become that's what a bhakta is, someone that's just transrationally attracted to the form of Bhagavan. That's what it means to be a bhakta. One more verse, and we finish. I am the Lord of Maya. It's Gita. Devi hi isha guna mai mama Maya. It's my Maya. But these saints do not desire my majesty. They're not interested in God on high. They want little Lala Gopal. They want their, they want a love. You can't have love if there's majesty. So that they do not desire my majesty, nor godly opulence, nor the power that ensues from the 8-limb path of yoga. That's the siddhi. That's chapter 3 of Patanjali. They don't want any of that. Nor the beauty of the Supreme. But they nonetheless attain all of these in my abode. They don't desire any of it, but they get it. What do they desire? Love. And what is love? Service. Love means you want to please the beloved, and that's nothing other than service. My friends, Jai Sri 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 Radhe Shyam. Have a great evening, everybody.